Insider presents Geek Speak with Matthew Harris and Meredith Lachlan. We cover entertainment, news, and tech with special guest appearances. So sit back and enjoy as we geek out together right now.
Good evening, everybody. This is Geek Speak. I'm Meredith Lachlan with my co-chair, Matthew Harris. Tonight's special guest is Nate Todd. He has a debut solo album that's coming out very soon with his third single that's coming out actually tomorrow called Revolutionary Loser. He is a singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist. Please welcome Nate Todd.
Hey, everybody.
And before anybody says anything, no, Revolutionary Loser is not a song about me, folks. Nate and I do not know each other. But Nate, why don't you tell everyone, introduce yourself, where you're from, kind of an intro into what style your music is and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, well, I was born in North Platte, Nebraska. I lived there for a while. I like to say I was born in North Platte, but then my family moved to the Texas Panhandle. So I'm kind of from both those places. I sort of grew up in a rock and roll band. My dad and my uncle were in a band. And, so when I was pretty young and kind of got to go out on the road with them and see what that was like and learn the music from them. Probably learned pretty much everything I know from those guys. And then, I kind of started playing in earnest. When I was 13 or 14, I started playing, I started playing drums when I was younger, but then I got into guitar. And later I sort of started playing keys. It's kind of a funny story. I was in choir in high school and they have, it was high school. It was right after lunch. And, sometimes we would get in trouble in there and, we had these like rooms on the side. And if you got in trouble, you'd have to go sit in one of these rooms.
Right.
Were those the practice rooms? Were those the practice rooms?
Yeah. If your eyes were a little red, they'd send you in there or something like that, right after lunch. So, how that goes. But so I think I spent some time in some of those rooms. They had pianos in there, and so I kind of started banging around on the pianos, and then I moved to Austin, Texas, and played bass in a lot of bands, and down there.
Are you in the Austin area now? Is that where you live now?
No, I'm in Denver now.
Oh, okay. Because I live right outside of Austin, so that's why I had to ask. Yeah,
right,
I live in Bastrop.
Oh, okay, cool. Right on. I know Bastrop for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It was great town, as you know, to, sort of for a young musician to sort of, cut their teeth in and get used to playing in bands. And then I was playing bass in a band and we had a guy come in and he picked up the bass and he just started, sort of playing and we're like, oh, he's good, and I was like, uh-oh, so I sort of, there's a keyboard right there. So I was like, well, I can kind of play this. And I kind of moved over to that. And that's kind of my main act. I've been playing, when I moved to Denver, I started playing in a band called Whiskey Tango. And that was kind of my main focus since 2009 was when we started. And I played keys in that band. And, we broke up in like 16. We put out our last album, Crystal Hotel, which was sort of a concept album. And, but yeah, playing keys, it's kind of the old adage, guitar players, kind of a dime a dozen, but if you play keys or bass too, you're going to pick up gigs. So that's kind of what I've, been doing for the past, 4 years, I guess. And, and then that's kind of brings me to here. And when I kind of started when quarantine and lockdown started, I, really got into recording and I did a 4-song EP that I put out in April called Sky Cloud Machine.
Very cool.
And yeah, kind of just went from there. And then I kind of got started. I got into Revolutionary Loser and started recording that, which I started, I guess, recording and writing sort of right when like quarantine and lockdown and all that stuff was happening. So.
Now, with you being, go ahead, Meredith, and I'll ask.
Well, I was going to ask because a lot of times, when people are kind of locked down, and we've talked with a lot of creative people who they've continued to create. And so when I was kind of reading through your bio, where you're a multi-instrumentalist, you're putting this together, I think essentially by yourself. And I'm like, oh, he's going to have a fun time trying to put a band together now and go out and actually perform this live one day.
Yes. I mean, that was sort of a crazy thing. And it was kind of getting back to my roots, because when I was in high school in Texas, in Amarillo, Texas, like my dad had an old Fostex 4-track recorder that recorded onto cassettes. And, when he was like, here you go, and I like, I started recording on that. And I was, I had a drum kit and I had a bass and a keyboard and a guitar. And so I kind of that's kind of how I started out, was kind of just playing everything and putting,
right.
When I had like a multi-track recording device, I realized that I could layer all those tracks in and do those cool things like that. And with that, the old analog, if you want to do like a backwards guitar, you flip the tape over, you start at the end, you could do little cool tricks like that with tape. So yeah, I was kind of just, and so that's kind of doing this was kind of getting back to my roots on that. And I started out with the EP. And then so Sky Cloud Machine, the EP that I put out in April, it was sort of a concept EP. Every song I wrote on an airplane, or I wrote at least the lyrics, and I might have had a tune in my head, but I don't know what it is about airplanes, but I don't know. There's I feel very creative on airplanes.
I get the same way driving, man. So,
yeah.
That's where it seems the bulk of my story ideas come from. I guess you can just get into that zone at that time.
I think it's, driving. Same for me when I'm on the road and stuff like that, like travel. There's just something about the wonder that creates, I think, that really gets the juices flowing in your head. I can't really put my finger on it exactly, but I think it has something to do with just the excitement and the unknown of that.
Right. When I would drive back and forth from Bastrop to Austin every day, that's an hour drive if you're lucky, and
right.
Coming home was a lot longer. I had to start taking a little tape recorder with me because, you'd just be stuck in traffic and something click, and you're like, oh yeah, and then I, too many damn times get home and go, what was that I thought of?
I know. Lost brilliance, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah. And like, I feel like a lot of those songs, well, there were 4 songs on it, which I wrote over a period. So sometimes I like the older ones I wrote down, I've kind of, I like the feeling of writing it in a notepad, right. Kind of taken to putting it on my phone just because it's so easy to transfer.
Right.
But that creativeness that comes from traveling and is the thing, man. It's a thing.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because you've got the inside scoop on both the Austin music scene and the Denver music scene. How big of a difference of creatures are those two?
Wow, that's a great question. I often think about this, actually. So I lived in Austin between like 2002 and 2007, so about 5 years. And I don't know. I haven't been back in a long time. I really need to make it back there. I miss Austin. It's kind of my home to me for sure.
Right.
But I think, back then, I mean, there was still a lot of, it's probably still like this today, you could tell me, but I mean, there was a lot of blues and country, and, we would go down and play on 6th Street and Saxon Pub. We played at this place called The Vibe. I don't think it's there anymore.
Right. No.
Saw shows at Stubbs and, all the, the Backyard, all those cool venues. I feel like then when I moved to Denver, the Denver music, Austin kind of has that established live music capital of the world.
Right.
Many genres, lots of bars, a lot of, and I feel like Denver is sort of kind of becoming that. And it's sort of took off like, not too long after I moved here. And I think, as far as like genres, it's not too different, but it was what I think the difference was, it was really kind of cool to just watch. I think Denver's always had a great scene because the same thing. We have Red Rocks here and there's a lot of music history here, but in the past 10 years, I'd say the music scene has really taken off and blossomed, and it's been really cool to watch, across all genres. You can find whatever you can. And the other thing about, I think, that speaks to the, how good this scene has become and how good it's still getting is, you hear a lot of musicians, at least sort of in the scenes that I run in, who might have been in New York or Austin or LA, are moving here, and giving the music a go here. So, both great scenes. I just think that it's kind of Denver's time right now.
Gotcha. And,
yeah.
I've always said I could live anywhere as long as it's in Texas. I've moved around Texas and lived in various areas, but the Denver area, particularly Breckenridge and in between, that's the one area that has just seriously gotten my consider of moving out of Texas. It's just so damn beautiful up there.
Right.
But what drew you to relocate to Denver?
I loved Austin, man. And it was really, it was just kind of a change of scenery, man. I was just, I was pretty young. I was in like my mid 20s and still kind of bouncing around everywhere. And it was actually music. My buddy was living up here and he gave me a call and was like, hey man, I got a house with a basement, you can live down here. Well, we can practice down here and put a band together. And, at the time I was like, yeah. And of course, growing up in Nebraska, we came out here and camped, and it's stunningly gorgeous. Here, there was just an amazing sunset. But yeah, it was kind of music that got me here, and, I've just kind of stayed, man. It's, I did, like, when I first moved here, I missed Austin a lot. I sort of got used to that sort of like Austin, culture. And it's a little bit different up here. There's some similarities with Denver, but sort of that, sort of Southern, culture, the food in Austin. There's good food here too. But yeah, I missed it at first. But, as I got in some bands and started playing around and got, just like when you move anywhere, and got used to it, I really started to like it. I've been here for, almost 13 years now. So yeah.
Oh, well, so you got there a little bit beforehand, because after you mentioned that the red eye in the rooms earlier, I thought you were going to say one of the first things was legal weed, man. Legal weed.
Well, I do think that had a big part. I think that played a big part, man, because I was here to sort of watch that happen too. It started really when Obama got elected, and his Attorney General Eric Holder, they said that they weren't going to go after. Colorado's had medical since 2000, I believe. But they always kind of had to, really be careful of, the federal laws.
Right.
But then when, Obama got elected in 2008, he said that they're not, they were kind of going to let the states do it how they wanted to do it. And that's when medical kind of was able to kind of really, be more of a thing, which was great because people need their medicine.
Very much
and then, when I think we voted on, I think it was Proposition 64. I think we voted on that at the end of 2012. And then that was the recreational law, and that hit in 14. And then things really just took off, and there was a big, a lot of people started moving here and, working in the industry. And I mean, it's I mean, like any industry where like with a big boom, there are good things and there are bad things. But
course.
I think for the most part, it's been a good thing, especially, I mean, the economy. I mean, at that time, I mean, everybody was kind of going through, or, 08, 09, the recession was happening. And I think Colorado was able to weather that largely because of pot.
And we'll pick up right here because there's a couple of things I want to say on this subject as well. But we need to take a really quick break. Meredith,
Cool.
You got that, or you want me to grab it?
I got it. We'll be right back.
Right on.
Check it out. MobileEdge.com has award-winning products with innovative features and contemporary, edgy designs that empower you to look sharp and travel smart with your mobile tech. Your beloved, not to mention expensive gaming gear and mobile tech devices are an extension of you, so give them the protection and style they deserve wherever you go. Find them at MobileEdge.com and protect your tech with Mobile Edge. Bring it on. Hey Geek Insiders, Mobile Edge has a special coupon code for our dedicated listeners. Get 25% off your Mobile Edge gear using coupon code GEEK25. That's GEEK25. Geek out.
And we're back with our special guest, Nate Todd.
Yeah,
You timed that really well.
Yeah, he did. He was like, knew that was coming. But
Hey, I'm getting used to these video things, man. I got it down pretty good.
Yep, aren't we all?
Right?
Yeah, back in I guess it was 2018, I went up to Colorado for just a getaway, and of course, one of my first stops was at one of the dispensaries, and that I was like a kid in a candy store, and then before I know it, there's like, okay, that's $270, and I was like, dude, I'm here for 3 days, and I was just like, I want some of that, some of that, yeah, and I wanted that. And but it pisses me off because here in Texas, it's still illegal, medicinal, and they've started letting it some of the THC stuff for epilepsy. My wife and I both suffer from chronic pain. Went through the opiates, went through surgeries, physical therapy, the whole 9 yards, and the only relief we get is by marijuana. And I mentioned that to a friend the other day, and I have tried CBD products left, right, and center. This is not a paid advertisement. I just want to give a shout out to this company because they turned me on to some CBD products. I wrote an article about it because I kind of just, okay, I'll try it because I've tried edibles, I've tried bombs, I've tried tinctures or however you say that. And it just all either tasted like shit or didn't give me any relief. But DNAHempCompanyShop.com, guys, they turned me on to some stuff. Didn't expect a review, didn't expect this shout out. I'm doing it just as a personal shout out because the shit works. And with my pain and my wife's pain, if I say it works, it damn sure works. So those of you that are in Texas or any of these other states where marijuana isn't legal, but you still need some of that pain relief, try it. Like I said, I've tried other CBD products, never got any relief, but that's what I wanted to throw in there. And Nate, did you have something to say there? It looked like you was going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's awesome, man. I mean, I don't know, it's medicine. It's been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years as medicine, also in, shamanistic practices and stuff like that. But, it's like you mentioned opiates and stuff like that. I mean, that's a big problem.
Dude, I felt like a junkie when I was coming off of opiates. I was having such withdrawals and I was bawling, and I told my wife, I'm a fucking junkie here. And she's like, no, you're not. And after I got off of them, I swore I was not. I mean, I might use them on occasion for real bad pain, but there's no effing way I'm going to take them things every day now. And for the government and now they've regulated it so bad that even people in chronic pain, if you don't have insurance, there's no way you're going to get opiates because you have to pay to go see your pain management doctor. You have to pay for a drug test because you can't be smoking marijuana and get opiates. And then you got to pay for your prescription. And so every month you're looking at $400 or $500 just to get some opiates to deal with your pain when I can spend $200-300 on some marijuana, and get more relief, and maybe not more relief, but at least I can effing function, and I don't go through withdrawals. I can actually take a crap every morning without being bound up by the opiates.
Sure.
You know? But it's so crazy that in this day and age, we still have that kind of regulation on marijuana. And it, you know, sure, I used to smoke it. I've smoked it most of my life, and I've smoked it because I like the way it makes me feel. But these days I smoke it because it gives me pain relief. And trust me, I'd much rather have somebody flying my airplane after smoking a joint than having a couple of shots of whiskey. You know, it's just all there is to it. But hey, let's get back to the music, man.
Sure.
You know, with the whole shutdown, of course, you said, you know, you've turned around and you started doing some recording at home. Is there anything, I don't know what the situation is in Denver. Is the music venue starting to open back up, or are y'all still kind of halted right now?
Well, so, you know, it's slowly and rightly so sort of getting back. I mean, a lot of, you know, some of the bigger local bands, I mean, and bands across the country are doing sort of these outdoor
drive-in theaters,
drive-in shows,
right?
Which I think have gone pretty well. There's been a few here. I think there's a drive-in up near Fort Collins. That a few local, or, you know, big bands around here have played at. I actually just started playing with a band called Flash Mountain Flood. And we did like an outdoor thing up in Nederland, up in the mountains, a couple weeks back. And it's on October 24th, we're going to be playing at Cervantes, which is a local, longtime local music venue here. And I think they're doing us, you know, we've got a lot of safety precautions in place. It's indoors, but they're going to be doing, you know, socially distanced. You know, you kind of have your own table with your group, and you stay at your table, masks. They put in a lot of, you know, and I think a lot of venues in Denver are really trying to, you know, do this in a safe way, because that's the only way to do it.
Right.
I don't think, you know, we all want to get back on stage really bad. I know that like that the show we did in Ned a couple of weeks ago was the first time I'd actually played in front of people in months, and it felt really good.
I bet.
It felt really, really good. So I mean, you know, we're excited to get back, but you know, yeah, we want to. I think everybody, all the venues here, are doing a pretty good job at making sure that everybody stays safe. You know, it's limited seat, you know, they're selling a very limited number of tickets, and, you know, I guess the sort of the silver lining of that is it kind of makes it a special thing, you know,
right.
Too, you know, it's not like a big show with a bunch of people, you know, it's kind of more intimate, and, you know, there's something to be said about that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Meredith, I've been hogging for like the last 20 minutes.
Well, I was going to pop in here for a second because, Nate, you know, when I mean, you've talked about traveling, relocating because of the music scene and stuff like that. So you've been doing this for a while. I mean, it's in your blood. But when was it that it became a hobby, and then it was something that you wanted to do just as a life pursuit? Because that's a big decision for a lot of people. You know, a lot of creators, they're like, well, I'm just going to do this on the side when I have time.
Right.
And then you have people who are like, nope, I'm making the jump. I'm diving in with both feet, and I'm
going to go live in my friend's basement in Denver.
Yeah, or my van.
Yeah. That's a great question. You know, I think that like you said, it's in my blood. I don't know. Like, I mean, like my dad, you know, who's a musician too, you know, he always told me, you know, like, it's okay to pursue your dreams, but, you know, have a plan B, man, you know, like, you know, have something, you know, I mean, he's got his PhD now. So
wow.
Yeah. So he knows, you know,
practice what he preached.
Yeah. Which he kind of left the band to do that, to get his PhD, you know, to help out the family and stuff.
Very cool.
I think that when, you know, when I was younger, I was definitely like gung ho and doing it all the time. And, you know, and as I got older, you know, I mean, you know, I went to school. I went to college here in Denver at Metro State University of Denver. So I was in school for a while and I was playing music, you know, and then, you know, when I got out, I went to school to be a writer. I really wanted to be a writer, any kind of writing. And I kind of got in, I got in with a local blog here called Listen Up Denver, run by Tim Dwinger, shout out. And you know, he kind of mentored me and taught me, you know, like music journalism. I learned a lot from Tim, and writing. I was able to, you know, I started out as an intern, and then, you know, I was transcribing interviews. You know.
Oh God.
Yeah, man. Then I think I did my first show review, which is for a band I really like called Desky Martin and Wood, and they had great jazz guitar player John Schofield play with them, and I did a review for their show here in Denver, and their publicist actually hit me up, you know, and was like, "Oh yeah, that was great," you know, and so from there, I was able, you know, he was like, "I got some artists that I'd like you to do, you know, maybe do some interviews with, do some features with." And like the music journalism thing just kind of took off. Cool. So I was lucky, very, very lucky, to be able to still sort of work in music and make a living off music, you know, while playing music. I'm very lucky. But you know, I love it, and I mean, they're both passions. You know, writing about, you know, I mean, it's all involved in music. But you know, like I was saying, you know, there's nothing like getting up on a stage and playing.
So you're a double glutton for punishment, or a writer, freelance writer, and a musician.
Yeah, man. Two deadbeat snobs.
We know how that goes.
What was plan B?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, man. You know, I suppose plan B, I kind of wanted to teach, you know. I was thinking about maybe, you know, going further in education, or, you know, getting my master's or something like that and teaching. That was kind of my plan B. But, you know, I also started after Listen Up Denver, I started writing for Axis, and then now I'm writing for Jam Bass.
Very cool.
Yeah, man, I've been very lucky, and you know, have had some people who've really helped me out along the way, and been very fortunate to be able to do that. But you know, when you know, like I said, when quarantine hit and lockdown hit, I just kind of really threw myself into recording and getting, you know, and you know, like I said, the EP was a sort of a concept EP where I wrote every song on an airplane, and my plan was to do sort of a series of like themed EPs.
Gotcha.
And so, you know, with Skycloud Machine being sort of an escapist thing, I wanted to do something the opposite of that. And you know, I've also, you know, kind of sort of had a lifelong involvement with activism and stuff like that, and just everything that was sort of happening, which, you know, I'd kind of had the plan to do like the next EP was going to be like an EP of protest songs, you know. So, but then, you know, I kind of started thinking about it, and I was like, well, you know, my whole life has kind of been a protest, you know? And so, and since I hadn't released like a debut solo LP, a full length album, I thought, man, I had some, you know, some of the songs I was going to put on the EP. I had some other songs, and I thought, man, I should just do a full length album. And that's how Revolutionary Loser came about, you know?
And that drops tomorrow, folks. Revolutionary Loser. And tell them where all
Well, it's your third single on the LP that is going to be coming out at the end of the month, right?
Yeah. So the title track, Revolutionary Loser, is coming out tomorrow, and then the album Revolutionary Loser is coming out on October 30th.
Cool. So are we still allowed to call them albums these days? Is vinyl making enough of a comeback? Because I always catch myself and go, you know, but the new album, and I go, oh, CD, whatever, but vinyl's making a big comeback. So are we now okay to just continue on just calling them albums?
You know, I think that's a great question. I've always loved albums, you know,
Yep, amen.
I often tell this story, you know, like growing up, you know, getting into music. I mean, I think the first music I remember ever owning, I had a tape, and it was like on one side of the tape was like Bert and Ernie's Sing Along, you know, and on the other side of the tape was Sergeant Pepper's, you know.
Oh hell!
So you know, like I've always loved the idea of like concept albums, like
Right.
Pink Floyd. You know, I mean, Pink
Oh,
Floyd
you're
always
speaking
does
my yes.
great.
Yeah,
Well,
they were some of the best concepts.
Yeah.
albums
Well, I
ever.
was going to say, Nate, we're at the half an hour mark. Do we have you for a little bit more?
Sure.
All right,
I'll go
excellent.
forever.
We're gonna take a quick break. I think this one's just a 20-second break, but we'll be right back.
Cool.
This is the legend of the traveling TARDIS. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Also catch us on the HWWS Web TV YouTube channel. Subscribe today and become part of the legend.
All right, and we're back with our special guest, Nate Todd, musician, multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter. Love it. Matthew,
And
I'll
writer.
send the
And
mic
writer.
back to you. And writer, yes. Journalist. Actually, I did want to ask a question because Revolutionary Loser, I'm just like, what is that about? Like, where did that come from?
Man, that is another great question. I don't know, man. I feel like the you know, like when I thought about maybe doing like, you know, a collection of protest songs,
Right.
you know, I don't know. It's like it was sort of I just kind of like the way it sounded together to start with. You know, I thought it was kind of catchy and you know, an interesting idea too, because like. Well, I mean, and a lot of it goes back to, you know, growing up in Texas, and you know how it is. You know, Texas can be a little bit, you know, behind. Not the most progressive place. There's great
No.
places in Texas. I'm not knocking Texas. I love Texas, but
No,
you
you're
know,
right. We're a little slower on the uptake of anything new.
but you know, and when I was in school, you know, like there would be certain things, you know, like I think there was like we had like they tried to like, you know, eat into our like lunchtime with this thing called Rebel Period. We were the Rebels. That was another thing. You know,
dude, that was my mascot at my high school.
Yeah.
The Rebels, and we're the Confederate flag.
Yeah, no, that's how we were, man.
Yeah.
I do think that they've tried to take some steps to change that. I went to Tascosa High School. I do think that but you know, there were, you know, I mean, this rebel period was sort of like, they would kind of show you these videos that were like propaganda, man, you know,
Yeah.
like, oh, we didn't like that. So we kind of like staged you know, we kind of staged a walkout, you know, and we were like, this is bullshit. You know,
Mine was back in the 80s, and they actually changed it my senior year. They went from the Rebels to the Raiders. They got rid of the whole Confederate flag and everything.
right.
But back then, to us, I mean, my best friend all throughout high school was an African American, and me and him were both like, what the fuck is the deal? Now, of course, we get it. But back then, it was just a mascot to us.
Right.
It hadn't to us. We didn't see color. He's passed on, but I still talk to his mom a couple of times a year. We're family, and so we
Right.
just didn't see that as a racist symbol. But you know, you're younger than me. It just seems like that they would have learned that lesson by then.
Yeah, I don't know. I do, like I said, I don't know. Like I do think that they maybe tried to change some things there, which is good. There's a long way to go. There's a
Right.
long way to go. But you know, I always felt like, you know, the principals and everything, they looked at us and they were kind of like, you know, me and my friends, we had like a radical discussion group that we would do, and you know, and stuff like that, and they they were not too keen on that. You know, they saw us as, you know, you know, they saw us as sort of like these like loser kids who were, you know, rabble rousers and, you know, like causing
Right.
trouble, you know. And that wasn't our intent. We just wanted to make it the school a better place, and because of
Right.
some of the injustices we saw going on there, and you know, like you know, so like that. I feel like the revolutionary loser thing kind of comes from that experience, because you know, and also historically, people who have tried to change things on, you know, the you know. Got people like, you know, Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King and stuff like that. You know, I mean, you know, you know, when you speak out against, you know, a powerful entity, you know, those people like historically don't fare very well, you know, and that, you know, I mean, you know, they lose their life, you know, and I mean, so that revolutionary loser, I mean, I felt like it kind of worked on a lot of different levels, you know, and I mean, it's also, I think, you know, I'm proud to be a revolutionary loser. And I think, you know, you know, I mean, even with this like current administration, which is kind of funny. I mean, that's a word that Trump likes to use a lot, you know, like losers, you know, blah, 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 because the minute someone speaks out against someone or speaks out against an injustice, you know, the powers that be want to discredit them. Oh, they're losers. Right. Oh, they're dissidents. They're dissenters. They're causing trouble, you know, and that's kind of where it came from, I think, you know.
Gotcha.
I think there's something very important about civil discourse, you know, that everybody can have a different opinion. You can sit down and have a conversation. You might not agree with everybody, but you can agree to disagree and kind of go on your merry way. And, you know, so I think that's important as far as creators, musicians, artists, filmmakers, you know, because of that reach that they have and the audience that they can touch, there's a certain amount of responsibility that I feel, because as a creator as well, and also as you know, I'm a former singer, and I love poetry and I love messaging and things like that. I think it's important to put out that positive messaging, but you can have, because of your music, you can have that civil discourse, have that messaging inside. And, you know, like a lot of people, at first it might be a catchy tune, but then they're like, wait a minute, what did he just say? You know, and it really grabs people's attention.
Yes.
And it's a powerful tool. And I commend you for doing that too.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah. I was just gonna say. I mean, I feel like it's sort of our response. It's a responsibility. I think, Meredith, maybe if you kind of feel that, you know, I mean, as an artist to use. I mean, you know, no matter how big or small your platform is, I think that's sort of what art is for. Yep. Is to you know, make the world a better place.
Very much so.
I think that there are different types of creators, though. You have the ones who are like, I'm out to make a buck and I want to make a name for myself. And then you have the ones who actually want to have the messaging and try and change the world. But Matthew, go ahead. I stomped on you once.
No, you're okay. I was just going to ask, you know, I assume that your father was a big influence on your music, but who would you say were the biggest influences on your music style?
Oh man. Well, I mean, definitely the Beatles. I mean, like I've been, you know, like I said, I've been listening to the Beatles since I was a baby. You know, a lot of that classic rock stuff. You know, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Neil Young, Pink Floyd, Talking Heads, Bob Dylan, huge.
I kind of figured Dylan had to be in there.
Yeah. But Dylan is a big one. Because he kind of was the, you know, I mean,
he was the revolutionary loser.
Yeah, no, totally. Totally. You know, you had Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and those guys, and, you know, they were doing that, and that Bob kind of continued that, you know, what the Beats were doing and stuff like that. You know, David Bowie is a huge one for me too.
Gotcha.
Also a revolutionary loser. And then the actual cover of the album, I'm wearing a David Bowie t-shirt.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, Of
Yeah.
course, being Geek Insider, we love geeky things, and so I got to ask, are you into any comics? And if so, or have you ever been? And are you now? And if so, which ones?
I never got into comics, man. Like actual like reading the comics when like all the comic book movies started to come out. Like I really liked X-Men, like the first sort of X-Men movies.
Right.
And X-Men I think kind of goes along with like with what we're talking about, because it was very, integral in sort of saying that it's okay to be different. You know what I mean? Or
there was all kinds of messages about racism and bigotry and stuff in those books and the movies too.
So I never really I wasn't really a big comic book person. I kind of like the first Spider-Man movies. And but I kind of lost touch with the comic book movies. I don't know if I felt like overwhelmed by there's so many. But I would say my geeky side's probably more with like love like J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings.
Gotcha.
That I read those, like the first novel I ever read was The Hobbit.
Did you hear that they just delayed the Dune movie by a year?
I did hear something about that. I remember my dad giving me Dune too when I was a kid to read. What was up with that?
It was supposed to come out this December, and they are delaying it a year just because of the pandemic and the theaters being shut down. They put so much money behind it. I guess that's what I'm guessing, that they want a big opening, so they're delaying it a year. But one of the reasons I asked you about comic books right before you came into the back room, Meredith and I were talking, we actually got a sneak peek at a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic that is coming out at the end of the month. And I never was a Ninja Turtles comic fan, but I loved the movies, the cartoon, the video games. Me and my brother really loved them. And so I got this comic, and I've been chomping at the bit for it because it's the last Ronin. It's set in the future. Only one Ninja Turtle's left alive. And
wow.
Man, folks, it comes out, I think it's the 28th of this month. If you like good storytelling and good artwork, even if you're not really into comics or the Ninja Turtles, this is a killer one because it picks up. You don't have to have been a fan of the original comics. It kind of helps with some of the characters and stuff and the names, but it's really dark. It's gritty. It's some classic storytelling. I'm not going to reveal any spoilers here, but I was blown away. And even though I've read it, I'll be heading to the comic book store on the 28th to get me some physical copies of it. I know Rob Anderson felt the same way. Meredith is already talking about getting it as well. And we get some cool indie comics a lot of the times, and we love them. We like Iva and Cat Dad and Supermom and stuff like that. But rarely do I get excited about some of the mainstream old school stuff. And this one I'm excited about, and it didn't let me down.
That I'm glad you brought that up because I was the biggest Ninja Turtles fan. Me and my little brother. I mean, we like I said, we didn't really get into the comics, but we had. I mean, there are boxes of action figures in our attic. We were nuts about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I will check that out.
Yeah, and it's I think it's a 4-issue shot, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but this one sets up the series to where you're like, okay, when's the next one come out? It was really good. So, folks, if you've been wondering if The Last Ronin is going to be worth it, myself, Meredith, and Meredith hasn't read it yet, but she's seen some of the artwork. She's going to read it soon. But Rob and I both give it 2 thumbs way up. Rob's read it twice. He did a review on Geek Insider. No spoilers, just you can see some of the artwork there. And then, of course, it comes out on the 28th. So I had to ask that. Go ahead, Meredith.
Well, I wanted to segue from that into storytelling because with a lot of your lyrics and stuff. Now, are you the predominant writer?
Yeah. So I wrote most of the stuff on Revolutionary Loser, like lyrics and music myself. The actual song Revolutionary Loser I co-wrote with my friend Eric Hill, and collaborator, and he plays guitar. He plays guitar on a lot of tracks on the album. He plays guitar on Too Much, it's actually the current single or the last single I put out. Yeah, for the most part, I mean, I've always kind of been a lyrics guy. more of a lyrics guy, just being a writer and you know, I've always been into poetry and being into Dylan, like we talked about, and you know, my dad writes poetry, and so I've always kind of been a lyrics guy. You know, and I've been, you know, as a self-taught musician, I've sort of had to kind of learn a lot about composing and stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, you know, I definitely write all the lyrics and like we were talking about, you know, like whether it's on an airplane or, you know, I see something on TV or, you know,
wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, wake up in the middle of the night, you know, and I remember I did I was up late at night, I couldn't sleep, and I saw on the History Channel there was a show about Galileo. And you know, I'm a big space geek, and I like all the space stuff too. And you know, I just watched this show about Galileo, and then I just like wrote a song about Galileo called Galileo. But, you know, I mean, yeah, it you know, and it's the storytelling. I love storytelling and storytellers and the tradition of that, and so yeah, as far as like lyrics go, you know, but then I feel like there's the other side of the coin to where sometimes, you know, like you might write a lyric that just sounds cool, you know what I mean? You know? And then, you know, sometimes you'll go back and be like, oh, well, that kind of does tell a story. So it works on a conscious and a subconscious level, I think.
Yeah. I've actually written a whole story because I had a title stuck in my head and nothing else, you know? So, but actually that was a kind of a lead-in question because I wanted to know for those who are out there who are thinking that they want to write lyrics or create their own music and stuff. When you're thinking about it, what is your process? Do you think about your songs like the one shot, you know, because you're on the plane and you have X amount of time, or when you're thinking about like the entire album, do you think of kind of that whole story arc?
That's a great question. So like I said, I really do like the concept album or like a theme album. My band Whiskey Tango, we did our last album was called Crystal Hotel, and it was sort of like you were saying, the whole story arc. And it was sort of based in I minored in film in college, and you know, I remember my film professor saying, you know, like Westerns, they use the myths of the West to comment on current events. And I always thought that was cool. I've always kind of liked Westerns. And so it was kind of based in a fictional Western town. And, but it was not unlike Revolutionary Loser, the album, where it was commenting on social, you know, issues of the day, you know?
Right.
You know, when we wrote that album, when we were working on that album, you know, the police violence in like Ferguson and stuff like that was really going too. You know, and I wrote a song called Sheriff Song, you know, it was about a sheriff, you know, and who, you know, was trigger happy and stuff like that. And but throughout the album, I kind of came up with characters, and it was definitely a story arc. And I love that. I would say that like I gravitate towards that to answer your question, maybe. But you know, there are tunes I think that are great that kind of just stand alone, you know, too.
Right.
And I think that, but for the most part, I do like to kind of tell a story, whether it's within a song or within a larger project.
Well, you know, and you speak of the concept albums, and I was sitting here and it made me think, really and truly, 3 of the top albums that I go back to and listen to time and time again from beginning to end are concepts. And that's The Wall by Pink Floyd, Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues, and then Sgt. Pepper's. Yep. You know, those I always gravitate, and I don't skip around. If I'm going to listen to them, I start them at the beginning, I let them run through. I turn my wife on to Days of Future Past. I've been listening to that since I was a kid. I burned through several cassette tapes just because I played them so much. You know, they ended up breaking. Yeah. Now I have them on digital. I never have to buy them again. You know, and I can just tell my virtual assistant to play them. But those are the ones that because because they do. They can give you that certain feeling that you only get from that album. You follow it along from one song to the next, and whether it's timely and pertinent to now, or it's that feeling of when you were a kid and the first time you listened to it, or maybe even the first time you got laid or whatever, but it still gives you that distinct feeling. But I kind of wanted to segue into something here, and it's a shitty segue, but have you ever been starstruck or fanboyed over meeting a certain musician?
Oh man. I haven't, I've interviewed some really cool musicians, being a music journalist. I remember interviewing Jack Cassidy from Jefferson Airplane.
Oh, nice.
And he was just the coolest dude. And I mean, like, I was a little nervous because he was kind of the most famous person I had probably ever interviewed at that point. But he was so cool. And, I think he was driving when I called him, and he's like, all right, Nate, he's like, I'm pulling over, Nate, or something like that, and he's like, so I can talk to you, and just a really cool guy. And I'm also a huge Fish fan.
Oh, yes.
And I got to meet when I actually lived in Southern California briefly. And I got to meet their keyboardist, Paige McConnell, and the bassist, Mike Gordon. Just kind of ran into him like in a hotel type thing.
Oh, very cool.
I was pretty starstruck to meet those guys. But yeah, I mean, like, I think it's impossible not to be, I mean, these people are, created like you said, the soundtrack to your life, and of course I wanted to ask them a billion questions, and
right.
You kind of just got to be like, hey man, bye.
How's it going? Love your stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think, but usually in those situations when I think, I've interviewed some more famous people now, and like, I think in those situations, I am a little nervous, but usually once we get into like,
right,
we start rapping about music, it's just two people rapping about music, and you get right into it, and it kind of all that kind of floats away.
And that's what we found out around here, that I wasn't really starstruck. I was just really excited to meet her. We met Athena Finger, which is the granddaughter of Bill Finger, one of the creators of Batman. And so that was like royalty to me. I'm a huge Batman fan, and then we're meeting Charles Band next month, which he is the creator of Full Moon Features, Puppet Master movies and Doll Man and Ghoulies and all kinds of stuff. And so
I suspect I'm going to be busy with the mute. So we can let the
she said, if you fanboy, I've been after this interview for 6 months, and we interview a lot of folks from Full Moon Features. We just haven't been able to get Charles. But November 13th, Friday the 13th at 7 p.m. Did I say 7 Eastern, Meredith? Yeah, 7 Eastern. We will be having Charles Band on for at least an hour. So there's a little teaser, folks, for you for the next indie event, the week of November 9th through the 13th, as we get on the indie side of things, and horror, thriller, noir, true crime, just kind of Halloween-esque, but we're going a couple of weeks after Halloween, so we're not competing with anybody else.
It's in the afterglow of Halloween, because that's the high holy day for a lot of people.
I love Halloween. It's one of my favorite holidays. Yeah. And you mentioned Batman. I really like the Christopher Nolan Batman films too.
Oh yes,
I was a big fan of those. Yeah, right on, man.
Yeah,
I'm a huge Batman fan, have been since way back when, but the Christopher Nolan trilogy is just awesome.
That's great.
This is Heath Ledger's Joker. I have Jack Nicholson Joker up there. I still got to get the new one, because did you like Joaquin's Joker?
You know what? I haven't seen that yet, and I got to see it. Everybody's been like, "What? You haven't seen it? You're crazy!" So
yeah, I loved it. I went to the theater, seen it twice, and then I've seen it several times since then. It's a different take on Joker, but Joaquin owns it. He owns it.
That's what I heard. I'll definitely check it out soon.
Yeah, with us being stuck at home, we've watched a lot of movies.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I was going to say, Matthew, we're getting towards the end of our hour. We have one question that we always ask our guests at the end of the show. I always screw it up. So I always
So-
pass that back to Matthew.
Yeah, and one of these days you're going to do it, and I'm going to screw it up. But Nate, if you could go back in time and give your younger self just one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that is a tough question. You know, I think it would be, just keep doing what you're doing. Like you may, you may be doubting yourself and, thinking that like what you're doing isn't gonna like, get you anywhere, but keep working hard at everything that you do and you'll get there. You'll get there.
Very cool. And Sam Blackburn says, Nate Dogg.
Right on. Sam, what up, dude?
Now, tell everyone, especially Nate, for those out there listening on Indie Vote Radio and on the podcast, that they're not listening live, tell everyone, about the song drop tomorrow, where they can find it, where they can follow you, when's the album coming out, all that good stuff.
Sure. Okay. So, so the first two singles are called Realize and Too Much, and those are out. Those are streaming on Spotify, Apple Music, on the major DSPs. Revolutionary Loser, the title track, is going to be up on streaming tomorrow. And we're going to be doing, for each track, I've done a sort of a fundraiser for different organizations. Tomorrow's organization is going to be the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Oh, cool.
Who they are, a great organization who, they monitor hate groups and help with voting rights and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be doing a fundraiser for that. So you can find Revolutionary Loser on, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, band. I think I did post my Bandcamp link here and my Facebook, my artist page for Facebook here. Those are great ways to get in touch with the music. We're going to be posting a lot of stuff tomorrow. And then, Revolutionary Loser, the album, comes out on October 30th. And we're probably, I think, we kind of maybe might have like a sort of, we're working on maybe doing like a streaming performance, maybe a small outdoor thing. It's got that, all that kind of stuff is up in the air. So, and then I also have a video in the works for, the single Realize. So all that stuff's on the horizon. So.
All right. And then October 30th is going to be the release of your album. So it'll be the whole thing where people can tune in. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It was kind of funny. Somebody asked me how I would describe it. And I said, it's kind of, for me, it's very folksy, very 70 vibes, psychedelic, funky rock.
Oh, yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's perfect. That is perfect. That is perfect.
Don't ask me to repeat that.
It's for the gods now,
But it did. It threw me back into my own childhood and listening to the music of my parents as well, and just growing up with all of that, Pink Floyd, with CCR. All of those things, and I had a little bit of like that country feeling. So I guess a tip of the hat to Texas for you.
Yes, definitely. There are some sort of like alt rock, alt country stuff on there. I love all that Texas country. Willie, Guy Clark, Towns Van Zandt. Those are some other big influences on me. So
yeah, and the fact that you're kind of experimenting a little bit. I heard some experimental sounds and stuff. So it's not like like straight guitar picking and things like that, right. or it's not all synthesizers or anything. There's just a really good, a nice mix of sound that is distinctly yours. So we definitely wish you luck with the album, and we hope that we can get you back when you're working on the next one or when you're out on the road. And
when the world opens back up, Nate, if you do make it back down towards Austin, of course, reach out. I'd love to come to a show.
Yeah.
And then, of course, anytime when the world opens up, if you start touring, anything like that, shoot us over a press release. We'd be happy to share it out with the audience. And, of course, like she said, let us know anytime you got something going on, bud.
I will. Matthew, Meredith, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure talking with you guys. I had a blast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Same here. Well, don't go anywhere. We're going to say goodbye, close it out, and then we'll say goodbye off the air for real.
Okay.
Alrighty. And I'll take care of that.
All right. Good night, everyone.
You've been tuning in to Geek Speak with Matthew Harris and Meredith Lochran, a Geek Insider presentation. Subscribe to the Geek Insider podcast on your favorite listening app and sign up for the newsletter on our website. We also have advertising opportunities through the website, podcast, and newsletter. For details, contact advertising at geekinsider.com. This has been a Geek Insider production. Thank you for listening. Geek out.